Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel. Not that long ago I mentioned to you that I was selling my A7 III because I wanted to get the A7 IV. This is Sony's latest alpha camera to hit the market. The camera features a lot of the benefits that we had with the A7 III, but one of the main features that made me very interested about this is not only does it shoot 4K 60 frames per second, but I can actually see myself doing those 4K 60 frames per second without needing the help of anybody else. One of the biggest things about the A7 III was that the display never flipped all the way, so you were always being on the front end and not knowing if the picture is good or if you're in focus. This is TK. Let's talk about the A7 IV and how it actually helped me cover CES 2022. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new video on the channel. Starting things off, I do want to say thank you very much to Sony for allowing me to borrow this camera for a couple of weeks and again to be able to use it during my coverage of CES 2022. We just came back yesterday and of course some of the main things that I loved about this is the versatility of this system. The Alpha cameras from Sony offer us so many capabilities, but one of the main things about the A7 IV over the A7 III was a couple of options. One, the fact that we actually are able to use, obviously this is a full frame camera, full frame lenses, but also the ability of using a flip display. This display enables me to actually see what's going on. An example would be right there. You could see this is the front facing, obviously, no front facing or back facing. The main lens here, obviously, that we're using here is one of my Sony lenses that I have. It's a 35 to 16 millimeter lens. And of course, what gives us the ability of actually enjoying most of this is that actually I can go pretty wide. And what I mean by this is I'm actually able to open it up all the way up to 16, and it can see definitely be used as a vlogging style camera. That's one of the main benefits here. The fact that I can also see what I'm doing is one of the big benefits here, as the A7 III did not have that. One of the biggest concerns that I always had with the A7 III is that the display only flipped ever so slightly upwards. So I wasn't able to use it to actually see what's going on, and I had to buy some accessories to help me. And that was one of my biggest things, is shooting content when you're on a show floor, when you're outdoors, you want to be able to see what's going on, especially when you're in front of the camera, not just when you're behind the camera. So that was one of the main things that I appreciate about that. And of course, this will work with any third-party lenses as well, as long as they're compatible with it. The other benefit that we get with the A7 IV is the fact that we now actually have the benefit of the new menu, the new Sony menu that was upgraded with the A7S III that we have, again, on my main camera that we have here. But the A7 III did not get that update. So now we have the new menu option, much better organization, easy to find location, easy to find options to be able to customize, and of course, get everything configured to the way we want it. The display flips not only in the front-facing experience, so facing the actual creator, but also works in actually half increments. So we can have it back facing or even downward facing. So whenever you want to do a shot where you're facing it, the camera and the display is actually much better configured to work great. We obviously still have the viewfinder that we're still able to use, so that experience doesn't change. All we have to do basically is cover it, and I'm not sure if you guys could see it here, but I'll show you a clip that I took outside with the camera itself, how it actually looks through the viewfinder. Automatically turns on even brighter than what we've had in the past. The button configuration is pretty straightforward. We now have configuration modes for video and for camera, so you're able to switch between the two. And of course, customize the options at the top. Those are two independent, and you're able to customize it. Hot Shoe present right there, A7 IV logo, menu, C3, C1, and basically the C2 option. You can customize those buttons for whatever you want. Video recording has its own dedicated button now, as well as the ability of doing the jog dial for zooming in, zooming out, as well, of course, to be able to turn on and set the apertures and different configurations. All of these are configurable. We have the jog dial menu right there. We are able to just jump into it. Let's go ahead and flip it over. Let's jump into an actual image. So we're able to actually switch over, and we're also, of course, able to swipe back and forth. Playback for the media, of course, ISO, set the timer, basically if you want to be able to shoot, take an image by yourself. Display mode, you're able to change that, and of course, delete. The main benefit of having here is, well, the system here is that we have dual SD support. So we have dual SD card recording. You can use them in single or dual. I ended up using it as a single camera, mostly because I only had one of these two SD cards available for me. So I wasn't able to actually use two of my Sony's SD cards. If you have two, just make sure that they're matched and you're pretty much easy to use. And of course, it has recognition for both landscape and portrait imagery. On the left side, we have all of the, kind of like an I/O configuration. Full-size HDMI out to be able to use for monitoring or connecting to your system. Of course, we have an audio input here with a main jack, and last but not least, monitoring. This is the headphone jack to be able to monitor the audio that we're recording. USB-C connection for both charging and, of course, using it as a webcam with your PC. One of the main benefits that I loved about this is the easy plug and play, no software needed. You plug it in directly into your PC and it recognizes it right away. And then lastly, we have the multi-port present on the bottom. All of these ports are configured and easy. It does come come with the strap, and as of course you can imagine, the strap itself, we got Sony A7 IV. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind that is when you're jumping into 4K 60 frames per second recording, you'll notice right there. So I'm going to go ahead and switch from camera mode to 4K. And you'll notice there's actually a little bit of a crop that you need to compensate for. So for me, it wasn't as big of an issue since I was using a lens that can open up pretty wide, especially when you were trying to shoot vlog style. So that's something to want to keep in mind. If you're using a standard focal length, or let's say a 58 or a 50 mil, just make sure that there is enough distance between you and the actual subject so you're able to get the tracking done correctly. Autofocusing can be done very easily. As you can imagine, everything kind of tracks correctly. There's no configuration issue here. It's very easy to just turn it on, set it up, put an SD card, and then go. Automatic mode is set in there, basically shutter priority, standard mode, manual mode is also configured in there, and all the other options kind of be actually turned on for you exactly the way you want them. The last thing I want to mention to you guys is the display is configured here. You're able to change the different options of what you want to show. If you want to turn on the function button, you can also turn it on when you're using it to whatever mode that you want to be in. Automatic focus, autofocusing obviously is set absolutely amazing here. And of course, best used with Sony lenses, and of course, give you the best capabilities of what you can do there. Now that we've covered the functional reasons why I like the A7 IV, let's talk about why I went from the A7 III to the A7 IV. One of the things that I do as a creator is go to events and shows, and I need to be able to cover these events by myself. I typically don't go there with somebody that's basically manning the camera, so therefore I always need to have something that has a front-facing display. That was a big thing for me. I've covered shows with the A7 III like IFA, and I've gone to different places, and it was always an issue for me. I ended up having to be behind the camera just to make sure I have the right shot. Sometimes we only have such a small amount of window of time to be able to actually work with a product, so having to set up and doing all of these extra things were always basically a big thing for me. Or I end up having to shoot ultra wide and cropping in. So the main thing I'm trying to say is that the display is a big factor for me. Having the ability of seeing what I'm doing is a big factor. And that was one of the biggest reasons of going to the A7 IV over the A7 III. Now, why didn't I go to the A7S III similar to the one that we're using here? That would be the price. The A7S III is much more expensive than the A7 IV. So when you're looking at it from a price point in the features that you're getting here, especially since we have some of the main benefits from the A7 III as well as the Sony A1, you can definitely see the benefit and the reason why the A7 IV makes perfect sense. The new CMOS, basically the new configuration, the image processing, all of those things attribute to a much better image processing and of course much better image coming out of the body of this camera. It's a full frame lens, and of course it's going to give us some beautiful bokeh, really nice focus drop off right behind the subject. And you just need to keep in mind that this is definitely going to have a very small shallow depth of field, so you want to make sure you're focusing exactly on what you want. And autofocusing with Sony's has always been amazing. Face autofocus or even eye autofocus always stays on and it never loses lock. Even if I turn my face and I come back, it stays on. It's one of the reasons why I like the A7S III as my main camera. We're talking on it right now, and I upgraded from the GH5 system or from the Lumix system because of the autofocusing concerns that I had back then. So from the functional standpoint, if you're looking for, I would say, an entry-level alpha camera that gives you some of the best capabilities of what Sony can offer in 2022, since this is technically released at the end of 2021, the A7 IV not only meets those expectations, but will actually even exceed them. Dual SD card supporting, full HDMI output, a multi-port, USB-C for charging, as well as the ability of using it as a webcam. And again, connecting it to your PC is very simple. No software installation is needed. Just install it and it automatically gets recognized. And you have a very high quality, basically webcam on your system. So really works in many different ways. And of course, has great audio input. The video that I dropped from TCL, the TCL over at CES 2022 was entirely shot on this. And a lot of my B-roll that was shot in my reels was also shot on the A7 IV, because I was able to actually shoot in vertical and horizontal mode, and of course export that and edit it in my favorite software. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is if you're looking for a great alpha camera, but you don't want to spend the $35 or even $4,000 or even $6,000 price tag, this may not be the cheapest one on the market, but it definitely provides you the most versatility and flexible options to use it as a standard camera by yourself if you're a single content creator. If you want to be able to be the camera guy, be behind the camera and produce content, it works great. Multiple angle configuration with the ability of accessing the display, the new Sony menu, the dual SD card support, HDMI output, USB-C connection to not only charge but also use it as a webcam. I feel like this does everything just right. So let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think? I want to say thank you very much to Sony for letting me borrow the body here of the A7 IV, as I now will be able to actually pick up my own now that they're available. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for checking out this one.